I've for a long time known the story and appreciated the story of Bart Millard. Bart Millard's the lead singer of the band Mercy Me from a few years ago. They had that breakout moment where he wrote the song, I Can Only Imagine, back in 1999. It was released, and it became a big deal, a sensation. And Mercy Me, who nobody had heard of before that, just emerged onto the scene, and it was fantastic. And their band Mercy Me grew into popularity. I didn't realize that there was a book, and so I'm going through the library this week, and there's a book about his life, and it's a fantastic book. I'll put a picture of Bart Millard on the screen and his wife Shannon. The book is fantastic because Shannon Millard also offers. She writes part of it. She gives her perspective along the way. So you're seeing both him and her as they kind of grew up together and into their life together. But Bart is sharing in the book, at the end of the book, the final chapter, 2 chapters, he says, it's not, since we've had this breakout moment and we're popular and we have all these opportunities, it hasn't just been easy. He said, I lost my way. I forgot what I was about. In 2014, he said, that year became a pivotal year for my life. I want to just read for you his story. He said, in 2004, in January of 2004, late one night, Chris, Shannon's brother, his wife, showed up at their door in Greenville, where they lived. He had just had his heart broken in a relationship, and he was distraught. Shannon had been his champion no matter what, and she had been supported and believed in him, and so he had come to talk to her and to pour out his broken heart. They talked for hours into the middle of the night, and at some point, Chris, her brother, started getting rude with her and so Bart said, I kind of stepped in and said, hey, you need to calm down a little bit. Maybe you need to go outside, take a break, breathe some fresh air, calm down. You're getting a little worked up about whatever he was talking about. And Chris kind of took offense to that and said, well, what are you going to do? Are you going to take me outside? Is it going to be you that goes out? You want to go outside? Bart said, no, just calm down and just collect yourself. Well, Chris gets upset and says, all right, I'm going to go home. And so he goes to the door and he opens the door, he turns around and he tells him, he says, tell Sam. Sam is in 2004, was their 2-year-old son. He says, tell Sam I love him. And he walks out into the night. They try to get him to come back in. No, just sleep here. No, he said, it's a short drive to my house. I'm going home. A few minutes later, Shannon just says, I don't feel right about sending him home. Will you please go make sure he made it home safely? So Bart goes out and he drives to where Chris lives, and he's not at home, and he drives to a couple of other places and doesn't find his car. So he comes back early now in the morning and falls asleep for a few hours, and they're woken at 8 a.m. by Shannon's father, who says, Chris didn't make it home last night. He died in a car accident. Well, Bart just melts with guilt and frustration and anger at himself. He's the one that worked Chris up and kind of shipped him out. He felt responsible for what happened to Bart. He becomes depressed with his own journey, and he feels he couldn't take it. Whenever Chris's name was brought up, the guilt was unbearable, he writes. It was unbearable. Well, later that year, Bart is out attending the American Music Awards. Mercy Me has been nominated to receive the Favorite Contemporary Inspirational Artist Award, and they win it. They actually win it. So he calls Shannon on the phone. He says, hey, we won the award. And she says, as if she hadn't even heard what he said, the most prestigious award they had won. As if she hadn't even heard what he said, she said, something is wrong with Sam. He jumps on a plane, he gets home, his in-laws meet him at the house. He jumps in the car with his wife and Sam, and they take him to the children's hospital. A series of tests discover that he has, in the words of Bart, an incurable illness. And it's true, but for him, that was what stuck, the incurable illness. He had juvenile diabetes. But the part for Bart, he's living on the guilt of his brother-in-law's death. And then his son is given an incurable illness. And he said that began the experience of pricking and prodding him and testing him. And in that first week, he's poking his son with the needle. And his 2-year-old son, Sam, looks into his dad's eyes and says, Daddy, fix it. And Bart lost it. He said, I can't fix it. He begins to melt down all over again as the weight and guilt of not only his brother-in-law, but now his own son. He can't fix his own son, and his boy is there begging him. And he said, it's the worst. There's nothing in life more difficult than to hear your little boy say, Daddy, please fix it. And you can't do anything. Then weeks later, his father-in-law goes in and finds out through a CT scan that there's a grapefruit-sized tumor on his brain. And they have to prepare their goodbyes. He said, that's on top of the fact that I was still struggling internally from the abusive way I was raised as a boy. He said, I was still seeing a counselor working through what I had experienced. He said, I couldn't wash dishes in my own house because every time I washed dishes, I would replay the time my father broke a dish over my head as a boy. I couldn't sit at the table with my family for supper because I could just remember as a boy being told I couldn't get up until every last bite was finished. And there was times I sat up to 6 hours. He's working through the internal and then the external. So he goes to the doctor. He's now weighing 370 pounds. His blood pressure and his cholesterol are high. He's developed type 2 diabetes. He has sleep apnea. And the doctor tells him, that's not all of your problems. You're in the beginning stages of congestive heart failure. And Bart says in 2004, having been at the pinnacle of a career, having people, and he says if you had attended one of his concerts, during Mercy Me's concerts during that time, you would never know that his world was in shambles and that he was hurting. And God gave him Psalm 139. It became a turning point about knowing who God is and his grace. He says, my identity had to be bound up in that God, not my band, not my profession, not my education, not my family, not anything else. My identity had to be established in what I knew of God. He said, so Mercy Me scaled back our tour schedule. We cut it in half, in fact, to be able to spend some time getting to know God again. And I want to put the final words of his book on the screen for you. This is Bart's testimony. Put it on the screen. He says, I am living proof that he, God, can carry you through anything. And if this is the journey I had to take to truly know Jesus and understand who I am because of his grace, then I wouldn't change a thing. Could it be the journey that God has taken you on, the place you are in life? God is doing everything possible to get your attention so that your identity, who you are as a faith-based person, as a Christian, as a church, as a school, as an organization in this community, he will lead us through whatever it takes so that our identity, our purpose, our meaning are all bound up in God, in who we know God to be.